Hey, good morning. A little delayed there. All right, so looks like possibly a reversal day in the making. I know we're just starting the day here, but obviously starting off a little negatively. And one of the ways to look at is anything bar to bar, pivot to pivot is always retracement. And then where does that retracement end by the time period you're looking at? And how deep does it get into, in this case, any support? So we don't know where this will end of the day, obviously. But even pre-market, this is getting a little deep. And, I wouldn't necessarily call this a wide range bar. Um, it was obviously wider than the prior 2 days. And so it's getting more than halfway in. And this, okay, this master trader method, I was saying, well, it's breaking a pivot low here. But that pivot low isn't what we call major support because it didn't make a higher high. So to violate the uptrend on the hourly time frame, it's got to break below this pivot low. That's the pivot low prior to the higher high. So many times, right, lower high, lower low sets up a buying opportunity. Now, the way we like to see that happen is when prices are pulling back and they make a lower high, lower low, well above major support, where it happens. Sometimes it get a really big move. It happens at minor support. In any event, it doesn't happen as this is happening. Wide range bar down, attempt to turn, wide range bar down, and it's still inching lower. And we go down to smaller time frames, we do not see slowing momentum. So while the bars are getting smaller, we have no reversal bar yet. And there's really nothing much to the left over here till it gets down here. So coming all the way back down to yesterday's low, probably bounces from there, but clearly the depth of retracement is not a positive sign. Okay. So we'll see where this is at the open and what happens when it gets, I guess, closer. If we even, let's move this up here more intraday as it comes into this area. At what level does it begin to bring in enough buyers? Okay. All right. So the beginning of the day starting off a bit bearishly. We look at other markets in a second. SPX. It's Friday. So as prices are moving down, and so as I look at the spiders, it really wasn't a big deal. I mean, the futures are trading, 24 hours, obviously. So yes, SPX low yesterday is 40.8250. Right. So give or take, whatever. We're not going to argue on the pennies. So a break below here puts in theoretically a pretty strong level of overhead resistance the deeper it gets down here. Now, we're way far from any closing price, but there's a huge open interest comparatively to what's around it at 4,100, which is going to make it a pretty stiff level. And obviously it was yesterday. So what's above that? Well, there's decent premium at 41.20 and a little less so at 41.25. 40 by 55 last time I looked versus 75 by 90, which is obviously a lot more attractive. So based on that pullback, 41.20 looks appealing, right? So McGraw's already in at 41.25, early jump, right? So that is what I would call the 41.25 level is what I would call as close to a sure thing on today that you're going to get, right? It's less premium, but a little joke from last week, right? From the trading day movie, you get to go home, right? So I think it's unlikely, where the futures are at, that this turns around and comes right all the way back up to 41.20, let alone 41.25. But, obviously you make your own choice on levels, and, less often results in, the sure money trade. There's a pretty big difference in that 5 points today. So on the downside, I think since it was starting off this way, and it's not a great level because, it's far away. And so you got to go down here, 40.40, 40.35, which is an open gap. There's no moving averages. Sometimes there is. There's no support. So if it breaks below here, it starts to break below here, there's nothing because of the wide range bar. Now, even from a swing perspective, we really don't want to see a move down to here, let alone a close below there today, because just imagine a red bar closing down here. That's going to, it's not going to break the uptrend, but it's obviously going to put a short-term damage look to the chart. So on the downside, as things are moving, let's see where they're at here. They're bouncing, getting a bottoming tail bar at the beginning of the support level. So we'll see as far as that goes, but clearly some intraday damage having been done. And so the probability, right? We always think from probabilities and what seems logical. Markets don't always end up moving in what we perceive as logical to someone else, maybe that does. But for me, just based on how this is starting and this move to get back above this high and a relatively significant amount above this high for SPX, I think that's a good bet for today, right? 41.20, 41.25, right? Nasdaq, you can see the depth here is even deeper, right? This has done better, leading the way up. And looking at the hourly chart here, right, was pre-market wide range bar, right? So wide range bar, kind of a new low reversal igniting bar, bullish price action, topping tail ignored, wide range bar, probability of the move ending just based on the range expansion, and now pulling back, and we get a wide range bar from a little consolidation right there. And prior day's low is going to be support. We drag that up a little bit, right? Somewhere, I guess, in here. There's a little congestion there. And we look to the left, obviously. And somewhere in here, I expect buyers would want to show up, or anyone that was short overnight would probably want to take some off the table. And, going all the way back down here, clearly the daily chart is not going to look so good. The weekly could turn into a topping tail bar, depending how far this goes. Right? So topping tail bar by definition, at least 50% of the range. I'm kind of just eyeballing that. I'm not getting out my protractor. 13,530-ish. 13. We put it right down here. And so it'll be interesting, as always, to see how far this gets. This is pretty strong support. It's supposed to be. Right? So in reality, it's not even supposed to come down here after this little rest and breakout, because now the deeper it gets and wherever it closes becomes a breakout failure, creates uncertainty and the probability of further downside. But the day is young. Russell was beginning to make the turn yesterday, actually did make a turn, and prices moved a little higher. That's moving down too. So while it has to break this low, and we obviously have to see where this day is going to end, but if this day ends bearishly, I know a lot of you will say, well, what is that, this measured move that you talk about? But this is something to think about for next week. Because when you have a nice move up and you hit the resistance area that we talked about quite a number of days before, and it backed off from there, and now it made this turn yesterday. So if this should fail completely by the end of the day and this starts moving down, I'm getting past the weekend, but throwing out what I'll talk about in the letter, depending on where this, the weekend letter, where this ends. But this pattern historically, if it breaks this low, turns into a measured move. So keep that in mind for next week and wherever this ends today. This was looking pretty good yesterday, actually. I'm just chopping sideways here. So as always, we'll see where this ends. Bonds are down a bit here, but within a trading range. And we've got the 10-year, popping up a little bit, above a red bar, but just in a trading range for now. And as we know, if this begins to continue to perk to the upside, the markets are going to get nervous, which means that this would be something that throws a little gas on the fire to today's little minor selling bout that's occurring. If this continues to move up, that it would help the cause if you're bearish. YM head and shoulders possibility. Certainly. I mean, I talked about that probably earlier in this week or earlier in this week, but it kind of doesn't meet the textbook. But hey, you don't need a textbook because look, the more you get into needing perfection, the more you're getting into, the rabbit hole and the things like Gartley patterns and butterflies and Elliott waves and all of that hocus pocus. The bottom line is simplicity works. And a head and shoulders top is nothing more than a failed breakout, right? So whether this has symmetry or however it doesn't look exactly like a shoulder or a double bump or whatever you want to call it, that broke out and it came all the way back down. And it's about at the area where it could turn back over again. So if it doesn't meet the textbook definition, who cares? If this fails, this bottoming tail bar, that means buyers are going to start hitting the bid and opens up the door to what I just spoke about, right? A measured move. And then as far as the head and shoulders go, it's a long ways off, from ever getting down to the neckline. So let's see what happens. This could just be choppy BS that resolves itself higher. I don't know. Right? Weekend's coming. It's early in the day. Let's take it a step at a time. And kind of like throwing out the tea leaves or the parrot cards or how you call them, and let's see how they all line up at the end of the day. And then we go a little further from there. All right. So you got the 10-year popping up here a little bit, even the 5-year, right? Popping up there a little bit. Markets tend not to like that. And we talked about this. This would be the one that it's not budging. But if this one starts perking higher, then I think, well, in the short term, it would be something to take note of that could put some pressure on the market. But, it's a long way off from causing any real problems. And gold is perked its head up there, but back down. But it seems to be shaping up with building a base here. Certainly don't like, poking above the highs and coming back in because you got a bearish 180 reversal. And bottoming patterns, as we talked about yesterday or the day before in the green room, tend to be treacherous at certain times. Silver, same reversal. And lastly, we look at the transports, which still look great. All right, so we'll keep an eye on what looks great to see if it starts to falter. And, these other reversal days that are kind of happening here, whether this market does have a tendency to make some wild moves after down moves, and miraculously coming right back again. So there you have it. We'll see how it shapes up. Right now, looks a little bearish to neutral. Trend is still up there. And, the depth of retracement on these Nasdaq futures is bullish. So how far this retraces from here, if it stays above here and chops sideways, then the expectation would be higher. Right now, we're starting off a little on the ugly side. All yours, Dan.
Good morning. Yeah, it was weird. This late PPI release that's been selling accelerated a little bit, but we all know darn well the
And
smart people got the information at 8:30, even though the rest of the world
yeah, they
didn't.
were saying, I don't know if you heard, but they were talking about data not being available, but was to certain people.
Right, that's right, exactly.
I mean, this is the new normal with, the new administration is take care of whoever and, smoke and mirrors.
Yeah. Let's see here. I was just glancing at the Dow 30. I'm like, um, and this is the biggest gainer. Look at Honeywell up here, almost $5. And I think somebody asked me about this yesterday, and I said I liked a bullish consolidation after greater than 100% retracement. Gap's kind of too big for me, but I don't know what's going on with Honeywell, but that's gapping all-time highs. And then JP Morgan and AXP. Oh, there we go. Look at JP Morgan. Uh, there you go. For a new trade, that looks fantastic. That's a gap breakout. That looks fantastic. So we now just have to wait and see and time it with our broader market bias. But I just saw this one as I'm going through these top ones on the Dow. All right, cool. We found a great little setup there. With the market selling off, there's a number of our positions coming in here though, but I don't see any worrisome per se right now. Rob and I have no idea, and that wouldn't change my bias of what to do with it. We actually put on a call spread on this yesterday, and I didn't like the bullish close. So Boeing is in the news. I'm telling some clients that they better check out some of their MAX airplanes. So hopefully this stays weak. Keep an eye on that. And we did Nike yesterday, so that had a nice weak close. Let's go through some others here. CCL, I think, got an upgrade. And, these monthlies still have room. So I'll keep an eye on this. Remember we did the foreign carnival, Kook? We did Kook way back here in this huge W bottom. So this could have been another good example of MT Live on Wednesday. And then the no-brainer. I mean, we could have got in right there, and that would have been a very beautiful entry, and then it petered out again. But then that gap breakout right there, that is your action. Now you drill down to a smaller time frame, which is the daily. That was a beautiful bottoming pattern. I just saw this going by the ticker. It's like, what got this thing? I mean, we're still in Corona, and this thing goes up $35 in a month? Don't ask me. Don't ask me, because I have no friggin' idea. Amazon. Amazon, I read in the paper, they're talking about their unions today in one state, maybe Georgia. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But then I saw some guy on still saying he loved it, and it's not really a big deal. I see Blink here, bottom right. Blink, we did not get filled on the put spread, but we did get filled long stock. As long as this holds 50% retracement or less, I still want to get in on a put spread here. It's a beautiful weekly, beautiful retest here. Kind of reminds me of our Caesar's Palace. See this turn here? And we talked about this in MT Live. Beautiful, beautiful bottoming pattern here at the 50. So we're still long stock, Caesar's Palace. And it looks great. The old Caesar must be partying out there in Vegas. Amazon, nothing. This stock big old gap, but nothing to do with it unless you find something intraday. There's our Boeing we talked about. I have it on the other computer. This gap, $2 stock. I have no interest. Leads here. What this was a potential bottoming pattern, right? Daily, weekly. It was a definite candidate. I really don't see an action bar yet, just because all these tails were telling me, and I still can't get out of the range. But now it's gapping down, so it looks like it's probably not going to happen. This gapping down started with a bearish gap here on Tuesday. I don't know, nothing's jumping out at me. Hey, Joseph, you see where you're typing to me? If you can change your drop down, all panelists and attendees. Yeah, Fubo, I already sent to our subscribers in Telegram. So that again, I mean, there's been so many bottoms where I could talk to you all about, is it a potential bottom? Was this a potential bottom setup? Bottoming pattern at the 200? I would say maybe, but it surely doesn't look good yet because it's in a nasty downtrend, bearish consolidation, and it actually looked like shorting a breakdown made more sense. But now with the bullish gap up, if it can hold the gap, then today might be the change of fortune for Fubo. So yeah, I want to keep an eye on that. Thomas, MU, and Intel. MU, yeah, it was on my list, but particularly it's at resistance, particularly with the market weak today. Keep it on your list, but I don't see anything to do with it today. Intel actually looks a tad bit better because I like these 3 bars of support. So that one's worth watching. Rose asking about Dell. Yeah, yeah. I actually was almost put that in last weekend's letter as a swing long, just the bullish consolidation there after a couple failed attempts to go down. But yeah, Dell has put that on the list. Ideally, I'm thinking we kind of have a go nowhere day, and then things will be more confident on Monday. But yeah, zero DTE day, my favorite. We will be looking for those opportunities. SC, yeah, SC looks fantastic. That's a bull 1, 2, 3. It looks like it's gapping up here from a bullish 15. I'm going to put that in the chart on a different computer. Looks great. I like that one. Rumble. Rumble's a mess, and there's no volume either. IMOS kind of looks like an ADR, the way it trades. Had a beautiful close. Yeah, it's light volume too, forget it. Sun W, gapping up, but nothing. Papa Mike got an upgrade. We'll come back to it. WDFC had earnings, very bearish gap, 285. Let's see what it does for that. This breakout failure and bearish engulfing and a bear 1, 2, 3 into earnings. That looks like somebody knew something. Levi had earnings, bullish gap, but too big, gap in the 27. But nice turn here. I love these patterns. I love gap reversals, going sideways. Fubo, we talked about, ASO. Gapping up 31, no pattern. I think that had earnings. GME, it's one of the Reddit toys. Since this typically has high volatility, I want to keep an eye on this for a 0 DTE trade. And right now, I don't have a bias. I don't know. We'll see if we do in 30 minutes. Grammy MJ, Adam, not sure what your question is, Grammy. We actually have a put spread that we're going to need to roll today. So I will keep an eye on that to roll. MJ, ORBC. That looks like a buyout, Joe said. Let's see how it went sideways all yesterday. So that's a clear sign of a buyout. Brimey, what is your question? Please. I had no idea what you're asking me. I said we will roll it, but well, we haven't either. I just said I'll keep an eye on it. We need to roll it today. So don't worry. I got your back. This was on our list yesterday. 100% retracement, beautiful buy setup, beautiful day yesterday. 50% gap right here. So let's see if it holds. If it holds and closes strong, it still looks great. If it closes weak, then we got no interest. I got a J&J alarm. Oh man. So we got to move stop 10-minute low. This J&J has just become too unpredictable with all its vaccine stuff. Heck it. That reminds me of Nurse Ratched. Remember that? One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Nurse Ratched. And we'll come back to it, but if it holds right here, maybe 30-minute high. Overstock. It's a potential bottoming pattern, but Robin, again, if it would help if you be more specific on the question. It's a bullish gap from a bullish 15-minute end of day base, we call it. So maybe 15-minute high. I like it as a day trade to start, but it's another bottoming pattern looking thing, not as good as many others I've been pointing out, like Caesar's Palace. We did Piton. All right, now I see Tilray falling here. These pot stocks get me a headache. All right, Caesar's Palace. We got to move stop yesterday's low, 91.56. I think it was yesterday. I was listening to CNBC talk. All right, so Qs are bearish right here, gapping under yesterday's range for the price wide. Let's check.